morning, it's December 27, and this is To My Liberal Friends. The rise of anti-Semitism on campuses seems to be surprising to so many, but if they had been paying attention, they would realize it's a direct result of philosophies being taught at universities around the country. And they have their leaders in Congress in the form of Bernie Sanders, the senator from Vermont, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the loudmouth congresswoman from New York. Surveys have shown that many young Americans, when asked whether socialism or capitalism is the better system, they choose socialism, whatever their precise definition of socialism might be. Could young people's rejection of capitalism be related to what they learned at their universities? In a book published a couple of years ago by Robbie Suave, he wrote, quote, "Most people know that professors are more left-leaning than the average American. What they might not realize is that so many professors teach an explicitly Marxist perspective, or at least they apply critical theory to the subject they teach," end quote. So these students get indoctrinated by these left-wing professors, many of whom are bitter that they've not achieved the financial success they thought they were due, while watching others gain wealth, who teach that all the ills of the world can be laid at the feet of capitalism and, by default, the United States. Well, a new survey from North Dakota State University found nationwide support among students for policing professors' speech on offensive topics, and a staggering lack of support for capitalism among students. Only 23% of students said they had a positive view of capitalism. When asked to define capitalism, over half, 56%, of these students across all political spectrums, liberal, conservative, and independent, say they associate it with the free market, and less than one-third associated with cronyism, according to the survey. While nearly half of conservative college students report having a positive view of capitalism, the number drops to 15% for liberal students. About 66% of conservatives who associate capitalism with the free market have a positive view of it, while 24% of liberals who associate with free market only view capitalism positively, just 24% of them. And students are accepting beliefs that they should report anyone that offends them in any manner. 3/4 of students are in favor of reporting professors to the university for saying anything the student finds offensive. That number jumps to 81% for liberal students. Wow, anything that offends them, they want to report. And nearly 2/3, 65% of students say a professor should be reported to the university for stating an opinion or fact related to affirmative action, police shootings, guns, vaccines, gender, and biological sex. And that number gets to 75% when liberal students responded to that same survey. Just reporting for saying something that they don't like. About 58% of students say another student should be reported for saying something other students find offensive. They need to have their safe zones, these snowflakes. The number increases to 66% for liberals, but only 37% of conservatives. And they're graduating with ideas that somehow they're owed something just for attending a university. Many fresh graduates find themselves confronted by high debts and poor career prospects. This is especially true for graduates of humanities, psychology, art, and similar subjects. The economic situation for these graduates faces no better than it would have been if they'd never attended university and instead got a job immediately after leaving high school. In reality, they're so often even poor. In many cases, their situation is even worse than high school graduates because those graduates are not burdened with high levels of debt from their student loans. They didn't take student loans. These young graduates now vote for student loan debts to be canceled, for free health care and subsidized housing. This causes many of them to consider themselves socialists, but they don't want the form of socialism you've seen in the former Soviet Union or other Eastern Bloc nations. You hear them point to nations like Denmark and Sweden, and they say that's the form of socialism they want. Of course, they lack any real understanding because when they see the taxes paid in those countries for this form of socialism, they start to temper their views. And very few seem to realize that Sweden and Denmark joined the United States as among the 20 most capitalist countries in the world. It shows they don't know much about what they're talking about. And what's most interesting is that young people from Asia, Africa, and Latin America have a much more positive view of capitalism in the United States. They see the United States as the beacon on the hill that's always been. They want their nations to emulate the American dream, and capitalism is the way to achieve that dream. Now, I have to assume that most of these naive children in these universities have no idea why so much of the individual creations, the medical breakthroughs, the technology advances, and overall creativity originates here in the United States. It's because you can create something unique and be rewarded for it. Now, I always go back to the story about the girl that comes home from college and espouses the theories of her socialist professors. She berates her parents for accumulating wealth and not sharing it with others. Her father patiently listens. Then he asks to see her grades for the semester. She proudly shows him that in 4 classes she achieved an A and the other a B+. Her father smiles and said he's proud of her. Then he asks if everyone else got such good grades. Well, that only occurs in the hallowed halls of Ivy League schools. And she says no. Her roommate had not been as diligent in her studies and got mostly C and D grades. Her father then suggests that she and her roommate average the grades. When she got an A and her friend a D, they should both be given a C+. The daughter recoils. Why? I studied hard and worked for that grade. Her father smiles and says, welcome to capitalism. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.